Hello fellow gardeners, and welcome back to the Humus Heritage. I'm thrilled you're joining us today because we're about to explore something that could fundamentally change how you think about feeding your soil. If you've been frustrated with lackluster plant growth, struggling with difficult clay or sandy soils, or simply want to take your gardening to the next level, what I'm sharing today might be the missing piece you've been searching for. The soil's secret. Beyond composting. Picture this: your garden bed's teeming with life, plants growing with unprecedented vigor, and soil that seems to get better with each passing season. Most of us have been taught that compost is the gold standard for soil amendment, and while that's certainly true, there's something even more transformative that remains largely overlooked in mainstream gardening circles. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on fermented bark, a powerhouse amendment that goes far beyond what traditional composting can achieve. This isn't just another gardening trend, it's a return to understanding how natural forest ecosystems build incredibly rich soil from the most unlikely material, tree bark. But here's the crucial difference: we're not talking about tossing raw bark chips onto your beds and hoping for the best. We're talking about harnessing the ancient process of fermentation to unlock nutrients and biological activity that would otherwise remain locked away for years. Fermentation is really, an unseen transformation. The change that happens during bark fermentation is nothing short of remarkable. You see, raw bark presents a pretty significant challenge to gardeners because it has an extremely high carbon-to-nitrogen ratio, usually ranging from about 200 to 400 to 1. When you apply raw bark directly to your soil, it actually robs nitrogen from your plants, since soil microbes are desperately scrambling to find enough nitrogen to break down all that carbon. And that's why, sometimes, raw bark mulch can leave your plants looking pale and stunted, but fermentation, well, it changes everything. Through controlled microbial action, we're basically pre-digesting the bark, breaking down those tough carbon compounds into forms that are, immediately beneficial instead of detrimental. During this process, beneficial bacteria and fungi multiply exponentially, creating not just a soil amendment but a living inoculant that brings an entire ecosystem of helpers right into your garden. The fermentation process transforms that problematic carbon-rich material into dark, earthy matter that releases nutrients slowly over time, while at the same time improving every aspect of your soil's health. So, think of it as teaching the bark to give rather than take. So, what really makes fermented bark exceptional is its comprehensive impact on soil health. Starting with soil structure, fermented bark acts as a kind of master architect, creating spaces and channels that let air and water move freely through your soil. In heavy clay soils, it breaks up that dense compacted mass, preventing waterlogging and giving roots the room they need to breathe and expand. And in sandy soils, which drain too quickly and have trouble holding on to nutrients, fermented bark acts almost like a sponge, creating moisture-retaining pockets that keep water and nutrients available to your plants between waterings. The microbial benefits are equally impressive. When you add fermented bark to your soil, you're introducing colonies of beneficial organisms like Coprinus fimitarius and countless other bacteria and fungi that form the foundation of soil health. These microbes don't just sit there, they actively cycle nutrients, making phosphorus, potassium, and trace minerals available to plant roots. They also form protective relationships with plants, crowding out pathogens and even producing natural antibiotics that suppress disease. Gardens treated with fermented bark consistently show stronger, more disease-resistant plants that seem to shrug off problems that would devastate untreated beds. Temperature regulation and water conservation are practical benefits you'll notice immediately. That layer of incorporated fermented bark insulates roots from temperature extremes, keeping them cooler during scorching summer heat and protecting them from freeze-thaw cycles in winter. The water conservation aspect is particularly valuable in our changing climate. Fermented bark reduces surface evaporation dramatically while simultaneously improving the soil's water-holding capacity. Many gardeners report cutting their watering frequency in half after establishing fermented bark in their beds. There's also the unexpected bonus of weed suppression. Applied as a surface layer, it blocks the light that weed seeds need to germinate, giving you cleaner beds with far less work. DIY: making your own fermented bark. Creating your own fermented bark is surprisingly straightforward, and you have two excellent options depending on your needs and timeline. For those wanting a traditional solid amendment, the composted bark method involves collecting bark and mixing it with nitrogen-rich materials like grass clippings, fresh plant matter, or well-aged manure to achieve that critical 30-to-1 carbon-to-nitrogen ratio. Build your pile no higher than 2.5 meters and keep it consistently moist, like a wrung-out sponge. Turn it every few weeks to maintain oxygen flow, and watch as temperatures climb to 50 to 60 degrees Celsius, killing off pathogens and weed seeds. In several months to a year, you'll have dark, earthy material that smells like a forest floor and crumbles beautifully in your hands. For faster results, try making fermented bark juice using Korean natural farming principles. Harvest young bark early in the morning, mix it with an equal weight of organic brown sugar in a glass jar, and let it ferment for 4 to 14 days in a cool, dark spot. The sugar pulls out the plant's essence through osmosis while feeding beneficial microbes. When finished, strain the sweet-smelling liquid and dilute it at 1 to 500 to 1 to 1000 for use as a soil drench or foliar spray. This concentrated elixir delivers an instant boost of nutrients and beneficial biology to your plants, with effects visible within days. What excites me most about fermented bark is how it represents a shift toward truly regenerative gardening. Instead of constantly purchasing external inputs, you're building a self-sustaining system that improves year after year. This approach aligns perfectly with how nature builds soil in forests, creating fertility from what seems like waste. As more gardeners embrace fermented bark, we're collectively moving toward gardens that require less water, fewer synthetic inputs, and less intensive management, while producing more abundant, nutritious harvests. This is gardening that works with nature rather than against it. If this guide has opened your eyes to the potential of fermented bark, I'd love for you to subscribe to the Humus Heritage and hit that notification bell so you never miss our soil building strategies. Share this video with fellow gardeners who are ready to transform their soil from the ground up. Let's grow together.